Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And as you know, today is Tuesday. We normally do this recording on Monday, but with both our wacky schedules and being a solo entrepreneur and me being on spring break, the solo entrepreneurs get in the way of podcast recording. Anyway, I rescued Nell for the short time today. So what we're going to talk about is building a podcast from the ground up. I know you guys heard us speak about that previously, but now we're doing a deep dive into 10 episodes of building a podcast from the ground up, from the RSS feed to the show artwork to the audience engagement, to the listener engagement, to where to put your podcast. You get the drift. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but Nella and Rebecca are starting a podcast, The Art of Sexuality. So here I am teaching Nell what to do and what mistakes not to make. And so I am going to lead on this one, and Mel's going to chime in whenever he feels like it. So, lesson number 1, what is a podcast? Well, do you remember writing blogs? I'm sure you guys do, writing WordPress blogs, and I know blogs were a big fan. We'll take that and think of it as audio piece of content that people produce once a week. Now, how do they do that? First of all, you have to pick a media host, and I'll get to why in a minute. My media host, well, I'm actually using 2 of them, and I'll get to why in a minute. But my media host for this Butterflies of Wisdom is the fabulous Lipson out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they have not gone down on me. They have the best Twitter I have ever seen. And my second media host will be Podbean, because quite frankly, Podbean is a lot cheaper than Lipson. There's a hint for you guys if you want a cheap podcast host, but yet a good podcast host. Podbean, I've heard phenomenal stuff. So we'll be hosting a second podcast called Wisdom of Fashion. Thank you very much. The reason why we are hosting a second podcast is because a lot of people have asked me over the years, how come you're such a fashionista and my child with a disability is not? And so we'll be getting into why they may be, and we'll be interviewing up and coming fashion designers and maybe some beginners, God knows, and who's going to do the podcast and the ones get on. And then we'll be asking them how they can help the disabled, because the disabled don't get to be fashionistas unless they really, really try. So I made the decision not to say that I don't love the Lipson dearly. I just wanted a different experience to teach myself how to upload on a different RSS feed. Now, you are probably thinking, well, what is an RSS feed and how do I listen to Butterflies of Wisdom? Well, the RSS feed is what you insert into iTunes via Apple Connect. And then once I publish a new episode to Butterflies of Wisdom on my end, i.e. Lipson, that pings the iTunes feed to go download the RSS feed into iTunes. So that's how you guys listen to Butterflies Listen in iTunes and in Stitcher and all that good stuff. So imagine the Lipson being the house and the RSS feed being the next door neighbor. That's how I equate it. The Lipson or Podbean is the house, and the RSS feed is the front gate or the next door neighbor. Just helping the house grow and just helping the house succeed. So, and Mel saying, I have a question now. So I'm going to let Mel ask his question because I heard him in the background saying yes, but I have a question. So Mel, do you have a question?
Actually, I honestly don't have a question. I'm trying to follow the breadcrumbs you're leaving, the trail you're leaving is what I'm doing, because there's a final destination here. Obviously there's a steps to the process, little by little. Offline, I would really appreciate it. Maybe you can text me or email me. I think I heard you say Lipson from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the other one Podbean. But that's logistics. That's not a big deal.
I will put, that's a good point. I will put both podcast hosts I have mentioned in the show notes. So you guys can click on the cover list, and I will text you both podcast hosts so that I have mentioned, so you guys know what I'm talking about when I say the RSS feed. Now, you may be wondering why I hate iTunes. I hate it. Because iTunes, their algorithms are not very good. But you still have to put your RSS feed into iTunes to get it seen in iTunes. And New and Noteworthy is another promotional tool that the podcasters think you have to be in it for the beginning of 8 weeks of launch, and once the episode number 1 goes live. And you don't. I've landed in New and Noteworthy twice. New and Noteworthy doesn't help your podcast downloads. It may give you 100 downloads off the RSS feed, but New and Noteworthy doesn't help your RSS feed grow or your audience grow. What helps your audience grow once they find the podcast is if you hit the purple subscribe button. So basically, and once you get the RSS feed, they will make you obviously name the show in your hosting, because you can't, this is a no-no, you can't host media files on a website. No way. I only know one person that does that, and I don't know how he does that, because most website providers will go, yeah, right, you will host 1 media file, 2 media files, 3 media files, 4 media files, and then the 5th one will shut you down on you. So I don't know how this person does that. When he told me I host all my media files on my website, I almost fell over. I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. And so that's why all these hosting companies like Lipson and Podbean are out there to support the RSS feed. Basically, they're the big family supporting the RSS feed. So, and now let's talk about the RSS feed. Okay. Once you go in to the RSS feed on Lipson or Podbean, you will see your show name .lipson./RSS RSS. And so let's say the wisdom of Sasson. The wisdom of Sasson would be wisdom of Sasson, all one word, .podbean .RSS feed. I submit that to Apple iTunes Connect, which is Apple iTunes Connect. Just Google it. And then it will spit back a code for Podbean. Then I enter that code, and then it usually takes 24 hours to submit it to iTunes. And now with Libsyn, same thing. You submit through iTunes Connect, although you don't need a code to submit via Libsyn. So basically, that's how the RSS feed. But you need to get, and here's the most important one, you need to get iTunes cover artwork that is 1400 by 1400. So I don't care if you have a big fancy logo and you don't feel like twisting it down to 1400 by 1400. iTunes will go yucky patooey if they see a big fancy logo. So that is a representation of your show. And before we got on this call, Mel and I were just talking about the representation of the wisdom of Sasson, which you guys will soon see. And so you need to put episode number 1 on the feed before iTunes can do anything with it. So again, you need to get the cover art and then put episode number 1 on the feed before iTunes can accept it and reject it. They've been knowing to do that to me. They've been knowing to reject iTunes feed. So then where do you place it on the Android side? Well, you place the same thing on the Android side into Stitcher and then into Stitcher and Google Music. Google Music is a little bit slow, as you podcasters know. Stitcher is a more reliable app. So now, Podbean has its own app, and that's why I wanted to test out Podbean, because not only is it cheaper, you get a lot more bang for your buck, literally. So I wanted to test out Podbean, but it's the same process getting into iTunes. iTunes accepts for the code. So it's interesting to me how podcasts are going, and 90% of podcasts are consumed mobilely. And I'll get to the iOS app, and I'll get to the integrated podcasting app in a different episode, maybe episode number 2, once we get into growing the audience and monetizing that. So that is what I have to explain to you about the RSS feed. Now, just take my suggestions. Don't Google podcasting hosts. Take my suggestions. I have done this before. So Google a rabbit hole that you may not want to Google. So I want to pull it over to Mel to see if he's very confused now or if he gets it. And I think I lost Mel, or I think I put.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I had you on mute. I didn't want to inadvertently cough or anything.
That's the trick with mute. That's the trick with mute. See, we're going to get in to recording episodes. See, Mel was doing what I told him very sneakily now. But do you get what I am saying? Do you get what I'm saying?
I see it.
Because you can't you can host all these millions of files on a website. And the cool thing with Libsyn and the cool thing with Podbean is Podbean charges $9 a month for their lowest plan, and I believe they go over, they cycle over at the end of the month. Libsyn goes from $5 to $75, and now I'm on the $30 plan, and that's perfectly fine with me, and Libsyn cycles over at the end of the month. So March 31st, my credit card will get charged, and then Libsyn will free up space so I can upload more episodes. And I believe that Podbean does the same thing. We shall soon see. And so, but Podbean, you can start for free, and so you don't necessarily need to start by paying arm and a leg with Podbean, and they charge a cheaper price than Libsyn. So episode number 2, we'll get into the equipment and the equipment I have and the equipment I use, and then we'll get into, on episode number 3, we'll get into the audience and audience participation and all that good stuff. So do you have any questions for me now?
Yeah, so you were mentioning that Podbean will be roughly $9 a month. Libsyn can do $5 to $75 a month. Are you paying for their capability for the space, the amount of space that they could store a podcast for you and then upload it? Can you give me like a better picture of that? What do they do exactly?
I am paying for not only their space, but I am paying for their stats to see how many downloads I have, and I am paying for their hosting support.
I see. Okay. So I apologize for asking from an elementary standpoint, but why could you not just record this with some recording equipment and then just upload it into the internet? I mean, what prevents anybody from doing that, or is it just you just need to do it this way with podcasts?
Let me just do, I will do some research, but I believe you need to do it this way with podcasts, just so your website doesn't yell at you, because media files are huge to begin with.
Oh.
So what websites are designed for is not media files. But I will do some research for you, and I will get back to you. You gave me a whole time. And
perfect.
So go ahead.
Like on my website, I have a website. It's www.mybestfitness.us. And I couldn't record my podcast, and then once it's all done and, it's out there in the open, I can't just upload that onto my website for anybody to go access to at any time?
You can't because, one, media files are huge. Two, your website hosting, whether it's HostGator, GoDaddy, or Weebly, or you name hosting, they will say, one media file is fine, 2 media files are fine, 3, 4, and 5 are not so fine, because they don't have the bandwidth or the storage.
Okay. So let's say a 30 or 60 second video that I want to put up, on my website, just kind of, talking about whatever, that would not be acceptable or would be acceptable? I mean, obviously a 45-minute podcast is a very long time, and I'm sure that takes up a lot of space and memory. So, they're two different things. So they're probably more acceptable with a shorter clip than they would, a massive 45-minute file. That's what I'm understanding.
Yes. Yes. It would be safer to go with the shorter clip, and it would be safer to go put it up on YouTube, let YouTube house it, and then enable it on your website.
Is that what you do with your podcast, or are all your podcasts loaded up on YouTube?
All my podcasts are actually, because Lipson is integrated with YouTube, all my podcasts are uploaded to YouTube, including the one we are doing here today, will be. So people can go search for it on YouTube, and that counts as a download.
Perfect. Okay, I gotcha. I'm totally caught up so far. So whenever you're ready to move forward.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I wanted to tell you guys is Podbean and Lipson will give you a code once I quickly discover Podbean here. I will let you guys know whether this is still in existence for Podbean. I know it is because I've seen it on other people's websites who use Podbean. Podbean and Lipson will actually give you a enabled code that you can stick on your website and have it automatically play the latest episode. Now with Lipson, it's just as Mel and I talked about YouTube, it's integrated already into Twitter and Facebook. So when I publish an episode, it goes to my Twitter, it goes to my LinkedIn, it goes to my Facebook business page, my Facebook personal profile. They have a player automatically embedded for those destinations. They call them destinations. Podbean is not smart enough yet to put it on YouTube, but it is integrated to Twitter and it is integrated to Tumblr, and then which is a blog site, and then it is integrated into Facebook. So you have a limited choice on Podbean, but I'm happy with that because Lipson is where I host a bigger podcast anyway. So I'm hoping that Podbean will eventually catch up to Lipson, but Lipson has been doing this since 2004, and Podbean is steadily growing, and I don't know how long they've been in business, but I'm hoping that I'll see the integrations that I see on Lipson with Podbean. I will let you guys know my experience. I will be doing all the uploading and all the technical support. Now there's enough technical support on his own site that I don't think he can necessarily handle the technical support, especially when you're starting out. So, when you're starting out, ask the professionals. Do not Google how to upload a podcast. Come and ask me because I have been doing this, and trust me, I was there when you guys were there too. And so, yeah, that's the synopsis on that. And as I said, I'm hoping that Podbean will soon have the integrations to YouTube, and not just to Twitter, not just to the blog site Tumblr, and then Pinterest. The reason why you don't see podcasts on Pinterest is because they don't have an API for it. I wish they did. So YouTube has the API, Twitter has the API, and Facebook has the API. Once they get the APIs, the magic power that be, whether it be Podbean or Lipson, could open it up to podcasting, but so far so not hot on Pinterest. I know you guys like to pin, so that's why I'm not on Pinterest with my podcast yet.
Awesome. I definitely am not going to make a move without you, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, because you can
you
can Google a rabbit hole just like TurboTax.
I could spiral down forever and never be able to get out of it, right? You'll go from one tunnel to another, and you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah,
totally.
And then you can spiral down forever, and then it wouldn't be a pretty picture. Mel would be like, "Help! I screwed up on the Rebecca podcast." So that's why with all my co-hosts, I take over, even if I'm not co-hosting the podcast, I take over technical assistance because we're too busy not to screw up. And a podcast is a wonderful, I can't say there's enough, business tool. You think writing a book is a good business tool? Think again. Podcast is just 10 times better because people get to know your voice. People get to know your voice. People have intimate conversations with you at the gym, and Facebook Live is pretty good, but a podcast is even better. So watch out now. You're going to leads beyond leads and beyond leads. And now if you have an interesting story like I do and built up audience like I have, which we will talk about in episode number 3 after we talked about the podcast artwork in episode number 2, where to get the podcast artwork. I have a secret. Trust me, I have done it, and I'm finally learning from my own wisdom here. And so after we talked about the podcast artwork in episode number 2, you guys, we're going to talk about actually taking a leap and starting a podcast and how wonderful it is as a business tool, because when I thought writing a book was fun, I didn't realize that having a podcast was so much fun, and you get leads beyond leads beyond leads if you play your cards correctly. And I get to share my story not only with email but listeners all across the country. And Lipson has a map, and I'm not kidding. I have people in China that listen to this podcast, China. And I never thought in a million years people in China would be listening to an English-speaking podcast, let alone an English-speaking podcast with the interviewers with disabilities and learning about solo entrepreneurship / disabilities. So that was amazing to me. And so far, we have Butterflies of Wisdom has gotten 30,000 downloads plus, and listen to this, we're hoping for 70,000 downloads. Close to my birthday, which I want 700 episode downloads, because that makes my sponsors feel better about sponsoring my podcast, which we'll get into why. And so please share this episode out, leave a review, make the 700 downloads happen. I give you guys until June 22nd to make that happen, which June 22nd is my 30th birthday, and Mel and I are recording a special episode on the 19th of June, which I know I'm talking about a couple months away here. And if you guys heard a strange noise, that means my headphones just died on me. So I'm going to put you on speak. Geez, that's the strange noise that you guys heard. The Apple earphone just dying. So now you guys are on speakerphone. So I want to let you guys know that 700 downloads would help me, and 700 downloads would be great to keep my sponsors happy. And in episode 2, we'll talk all about the artwork and all about what you can do and what you can't do via artwork, and what you can do as far as music and intros and outros, and what you can't do, because I've spoken to DJs about this and they still believe the same things that the podcasters do. There's something called pod safe music, and we'll get into episode 2 in that. And I apologize for the coughing attack, but that's not part of discovering the podcast. That's why I put myself on mute. But because I'm talking, I couldn't put myself on mute. And so I hope you guys got a taste of what a podcast is and how to listen to it. And I'll talk about subscribing to a podcast, and I'll make another huge announcement when we get up there and I talk about subscribing to a podcast. Maybe in episode number 5 I make that huge announcement, because what I'm coming to quickly discover is people are saying, what's a podcast? How do I subscribe to it? But they know what our app is on our iPhone. I had a friend of mine actually in December. Now, granted, this is in December, and now, granted, she uses her iPhone like the rest of us. And so she goes, how do I subscribe to your podcast? And I don't know what she knows I have one, but she goes, I don't know how to subscribe to your podcast. So when we get to episode number 5, I'm going to tell you guys what I'm going to do. Hint, hint. So hang out with us until episode number 5. Actually, hang out with us to the end of building a podcast. And so I have no idea what Friday's going to be, because my co-host hasn't told me yet. But I know that Friday is going to be a very special day at Butterflies of Wisdom, because I have JJ Wilson coming on to talk about her book, The Miracle Mindset. I believe I explained it to you guys. Her son got hit by a car, basically left for dead. The woman drove off, and he now has a brain injury, of course. And so, well, I shouldn't say of course, he now has a brain injury. So she's going to come on and talk about the book. She's a New York Times bestselling over, I believe, 10 times. And she's just a fabulous voice to listen to. And she can hold a podcast of her very own. In fact, do me a favor, you guys, to Google the JJ Version Lifestyle Show, just so you can hear her voice. And so I am super excited to be inviting her on her inviting her on my podcast. Hopefully she does the same for me one of these days. But I'm surprised she said yes to little old me, but because when you're on a press tour and you like the interesting stories of a podcast, I think you would say yes to little old me. But she said yes to big names and little names, so I'm honored to have her on, and we'll see how that goes. And then with Mel and I have no idea what we're talking about on Friday. All I know is I show up for the recordings, but Monday is my day, and I think I'm doing a very good job of it. And so we will see you guys on Friday, and you guys will hear all episodes on Sunday. And please, 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 please share this episode out with a friend. So, and tell them to subscribe to, and tell them to listen to Building a Podcast episodes on Butterflies of Wisdom, so that we can get the download numbers up to 700 by my 30th birthday. And so I'm going to let Mel take over and close out the show.
Absolutely. Excellent. Learned a lot today, Wynn. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience. That's often far more valuable than researching it on your own, and I'm sure you're going to save me a lot of time. I'm one to always want to make sure that I succeed in everything that I do, and I have no problem listening and learning from people that are better than me. So thank you for your generosity today. Friday's show is going to be a surprise. We don't know what it is yet. We're narrowing it down, but Wynn, you and I always have a good time when we do it, and we will make sure that we add value to all of our listeners. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening to this, and thank you, Wynn.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys.